We'll then get this window where we can see all of the different assets that are included in the pack. And if there's something in particular that you don't want, say you already have a character and don't need this one, we can simply uncheck it. But I'd like to import everything, so I'm just gonna select everything and hit import. This one is called Buy Games, and under here we have the free platform game assets. And here we can see a bunch of different subfolders with the different aspects of our pack. And most packs will also come with some kind of a demo scene. In this case, there's a demo folder right here. If we open that up and double click on the scene to open it, we can then go into the scene view and we can see this nice example of how you can combine the different elements to create a level. You can of course select the 2D rect tool at the top here. The shortcut for this is the T key. And if you also make sure that you're in 2D mode at the top of our scene view, we can then go in and simply click and change different elements around. We can of course move them, rotate them, and scale them as well. And so you can quickly start modifying these levels to make them your own. But of course we want to create our own custom level. So we'll go back to the default sample scene and we can now start dragging in assets to use them. And how you go about this is going to depend on the pack that you're using. This pack here splits up all the sprites into individual images. So if we go under say tiles and then PNG, we have some different sizes available here. I'm going to go under 256. I'm going to select the grass platform and drag it in. And that works right away. We have all of our different assets and each one of them is a separate image. So we can simply drag in some different images to sketch out a level. But what most 2D packs do is that they use a tile set. And a tile set is basically just a very large image with a bunch of sprites laid side by side. For example, if we go to the asset store and download the Sunny Land and open up the folder here, we can see that under artwork and then environment, in here we can see that there is indeed a file called tileset. And if we have a look at this, we can see that it's basically just a bunch of smaller sprites in one larger image. Now, if you want to learn how to create your own tile sets and set them up in Unity, we have a tutorial that I suggest you check out. But luckily, this package has done all of that for us. If we just select the tile set sliced here, we can see that they've actually gone in and marked all the different tiles that make up this tile set. And if we expand this arrow here, we can actually see each individual tile in our tile set. Pretty cool. And just like any other image, we can take any one of these and simply drag them in to the editor. Now this one is a lot smaller, but you can see it works just fine. So now that we know how to work with sprites, let's try and build out a quick level here. So we already have this grass platform here, that's great. I'm just going to place it here. Let's also add a background. So I'm going to go under new background, under PNG. I'm just going to select the low res version here, under background. And here we have another file. Let's simply drag that in as well. And we can see this looks nice in our camera, but we can also see that it's overlaid on top of our grass. And of course, we want our background to be behind it. For this, we use something called sorting layers. So to the right in our inspector here under the sprite renderer, we can see the setting called the sorting layer. If we click this, we can add a new sorting layer. This takes us to another menu where we can hit the plus sign to create a new layer. Let's call this one background. And if we want this to be behind the default layer, we actually need to put it on top. That's because this actually represents the drawing order. In other ways, we first draw our background and then we draw the default layer on top. And let's just go in and add another one here called the foreground in case you want to have some foreground elements as well. So now we can go into our new background and we can change the sorting layer here to background. And voila, our grass platform appears. We can also maybe add a coin to our game. To do that, we'll go under the coin animation. Let's go under PNG again. And let's just select the small version here. And as you can see, go under called the sorting layer. If we click this, we can add a new sorting layer. This takes us to back to draw our back. Another one here called the foreground in case you want to have some foreground elements as well. So now we can go into a new background and we can change the sorting layer here to background. And voila, our grass platform appears. We can also maybe add a coin to our game. To do that, we'll go under the coin animation. Let's go under PNG again. And let's just select the small version here. And as you can see, this has a bunch of different images. And if we go through these quickly, we can see that they make up an animation. So to add these as a single animated object, we simply select the first one, hold down Shift and select the last one. And we then drag all of them in. Unity is going to notice that we are dragging in a bunch of images, and so it's going to ask us to create a new animation with these images. I'm going to make a new folder for this, and I'm going to store all of our animation in here. Let's open it up, and let's call this the coin animation. Let's hit save, and inside of our animation folder, Unity is now going to create both a animation file as well as an animator controller. And this is currently named after one of our images. I'm just going to rename this to coin animator. And now if we select our coin, we can see that it has an animator component as well. If we go to the animation window, which you can always find under Window, Animation, we can actually go through each individual image in this animation. If we hit play, we can play through it. Or if we simply hit this button to play the game, we can see that the animation plays and repeats by default. So now we have an animated coin in our game. We can of course move this around and put it anywhere that we would like. And just like when creating any game in Unity, we can then add components to our different game objects in order to make them do different things. Say for example that we wanted this coin to have physics applied. Well, then we could go ahead and add a new component. We can go under physics 2D, and here we have a bunch of different components for adjusting 2D physics on our game object. I'm just going to select the box collider 2D. If we then go into the scene view and select our coin and hit F to focus on it, we should be able to see that there's actually a green line surrounding our coin. It might not be too visible from the screen recording, but it is there. I'm just going to give it a size of 1 on the X. This way we can kind of see it more clearly. And the Y is just fine as it is. But adding a collider is not enough. If we want this to fall onto our platform, we also have to apply physics to it. To do this, we'll go add component and we'll search for rigid body 2D. This will apply physics to our coin, and if we now hit play, we should see that immediately our coin falls. However, because we don't have a collider on our grass, it's just going to fall right through our platform. So let's here go and add a box collider 2D, and we can go in and edit the collider here, and I'm just going to drag the top a bit down so that it looks like our coin is landing at the center of our platform. I'm also going to take the platform and drag it down a bit, and if we now hit play once more, we can see that the coin falls and lands on our platform. We can also see that we have this weird issue where sometimes our coin is behind our platform and sometimes it's in front. And that's because they're currently on the same sorting layer. And not only that, they have the same order within that layer. To change that, we can go to our coin here and we can increase the order in layer. So if we set this to any value greater than 1, it will be drawn on top of our platform. I'm just going to set it to something like 10. And now when we hit play, our coin always appears on top of our platform. So that is kind of the very basics of working with 2D objects in Unity. And currently we're just using the default sprite workflow. We can take any of these objects and drag it around freely. In other words, we aren't restricted to a grid. However, because this platform actually has a bunch of different tiles in it, it would work great with the tile-based workflow. So let me just give you a quick preview of how that would work. If you want to learn more about using tile maps in Unity, we have a tutorial dedicated to that, so definitely check that out. So for now, I'm just going to take these two objects and remove them. And instead, I'm going to right click in our scene and I'm going to go to the object and create a new tile map. This creates an object in our scene called grid. And as you can see, this does overlay a grid on top of our scene. I'm going to set the cell size of this grid to 2 by 2. This way it's a bit larger. And under this grid, we have the tile map. We can also go and open up the tile set window. So we'll go window, 2D, and select the tile palette. Let's dock this to the side of our scene view. And the tile palette is basically just a window where we add all of our tiles and then we can select between them in order to paint them into our scene. So I'm gonna create a new palette here. Let's just name it something like grass platform palette. I'm gonna hit create and I'm just gonna store it in the base folder here. So hit select folder. And now we can simply drag sprites in here in order to add them to our palette. Of course, we have a bunch of tiles right here. So I'm just going to select all of them and drag them right in. And it's going to ask us where we want to generate all of the tile assets. I'm going to right click and create a new folder for this. Let's call it tiles. And let's hit select folder. It's then going to generate all of our tiles. And voila, we can now see all of our tiles inside of this window. And we can select any one of them by simply clicking on it. And by selecting the brush tool at the top here, we can then start painting them into our scene. We can also see that they don't quite line up with our grid. To change that, we need to select all of our sprites, and to the right here, we'll change the pixels per unit. And each of these sprites is 256 by 256, and we want each one of them to be 2 units wide, because we set our grid to 2 by 2. And so we simply need to take this value and half it, and that makes 128. So we'll set the pixels per unit to 128. And if we then apply that, we can see that they snap right into place. So I'm just going to use the paintbrush and eraser tool to paint a quick level here. Awesome! Again, I really suggest you check out our tutorial on tile maps if this is the workflow that you want to use. So hopefully that should give you an idea of what tools you have at your disposal when starting to make 2D games in Unity. Of course, this is only the beginning and we'll be releasing new videos on the different aspects of making 2D games going forward, starting with player movement. If there are any particular subjects that you would like to see, like enemies, one-way platforms, or shooting, definitely let us know in the comments. Until then, I recommend just playing around with Unity and having some fun sketching out your own levels. Also, if you like this video and the content in general, consider supporting us on Patreon. Patreon allows you to make a monthly donation with an amount of your choosing. You can cancel it at any time, and it's just a great way to help us keep making these videos. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks to all of the awesome Patreon support.